From the moment I opened up the wrapping paper on Christmas Day to reveal Star Wars Shadows of the Empire, I couldn't wait to play it. I was in my teenage years at the time, and if one thing growing up as a gamer had taught me, it was that Star Wars games were often some of my fondest memories. From playing games like Dark Forces on the PC with my dad, to playing the awesome Star Wars games on the Super Nintendo with my friends. So with the latest Star Wars game coming to the N64, my expectations were very high. Not only this, but LucasArts had crafted a new sub-story where the game world would live. It would take place during and after the events of Empire Strikes Back, and coincided with the release of the novel and comics of the same name. The new Shadows of the Empire story was met with mixed reactions by fans, however the game was being hotly anticipated regardless. Whilst it was being released on PC also, the console exclusivity went to Nintendo's new 64-bit powerhouse, and this was one of the few major coups from Nintendo during the early part of its war against Sony's PlayStation. The opening level can only be described as one of the most influential and important stages in my entire gaming life. When I first played the Hoth levels on Star Wars on a Super Nintendo, I'd often been left wanting more. Finally, this was the Battle of Hoth I imagined for all of those years. It was a fully 3D open battleground where I was in control of a snowspeeder, tasked with destroying probe droids and blasting walkers to pieces. Then I had to use my tow cables to round up AT-ATs and drop them to their knees. I could choose multiple camera angles, enter the cockpit to feel like I really was in the thick of battle. Lasers flew past me, explosions were everywhere, other rebel fighters were flying alongside me. This was Star Wars. Not the Star Wars games I had to use my imagination with in the past, this was me in the Star Wars universe. No other Star Wars game had sucked me in and made me feel like a rebel as much as this. Sure, I loved the Rebel Assault game on my 3DO, and I can't even remember just how many hours I put into the X-Wing games on my PC, but this was finally it. The new generation of gaming had arrived. And as I finished the Battle of Hoth, I took a breath and I could only imagine what was to come next. Wait a second. Okay, so level 2 starts on foot and you get to play as Han Solo. Wait a second, who the heck is this guy? You see, whilst playing the Battle of Hoth, I assumed I was one of the main characters from the movies. Little did I realise I was actually playing as Dash Rendar, a new Star Wars character, and the purpose of the game is to defeat a new threat, Prince Xizor. Dash Rendar turned out to be one of the most disliked Star Wars characters ever. To many people, myself included, he only ever comes across as a poor man's Han Solo. He is a human smuggler, a hired gun who'll work for whoever pays the most. It's hardly the heroic and likeable heroes that we're used to in the Star Wars universe. You see, Shadows of the Empire is a mix of gameplay styles. You have vehicle-based levels, and also levels on foot, such as Level 2, which is the escape from Echo Base. Rogue Squadron has been able to give most of the rebels enough time to escape, but not everyone. On foot, you have to find a way to power the generator to unlock the base of the Outrider, which is Dash Rendar's ship. It's at this point where the game begins to show its flaws. Whilst many vehicle-based levels are incredible, the foot levels seem more like filler. They do help to drive the story forward, but the controls and awkward camera really take you out of the game. Not only this, but some of the on-foot levels, such as Gull Spaceport, are far too big and long. No joke, this level takes me around 45 minutes to play and there are no save points, so if you run out of lives before the end of the level, it's game over and you have to go back and start the mission right from the start. The on-foot levels do have some nice touches however. There is the option to use a wide range of weapons, and the coolest features using the jetpack, which becomes extremely useful for the difficult platforming sections in the game. In contrast to the super long Gull Spaceport level, some of the game's 10 stages are ridiculously short and easy. Take for example the Asteroid Chase, which in theory could and maybe should have been one of the game's highlights, as you take the Outriders' gun turrets and destroy TIE fighters and asteroids. The problem is that this level is extremely easy, and adding insult to injury, the level's also over in a matter of minutes. It did bring back flashes of Star Wars Arcade, but just as the level gets going, it's over, leaving you wanting more. Other highlights of the game are few and far between. Aside from the incredible final mission which sees you take part in a huge space battle, my other favourite level is one which also divides opinions. Some gamers hate the Mos Eisley and Beggars Canyon level, where you chase and destroy swoop riders before racing to the end of Beggars Canyon. My friend had always sworn that at the time Extreme G was the fastest game he had played on the N64, but this level feels far quicker, and the frame rate is fantastic. You get a real sense of speed, and it will take a few times to get used to controlling the machine, and you will need quick reflexes in order to complete the mission. The music in the game is by far one of the highlights for me. All of the Star Wars music, themes and scores by John Williams are present. A cool fact is that the game's main theme is an unused cue from Empire Strikes Back, and many of the other scores from the game are directly from the movies. Surprisingly, for the N64, the music is also of high quality. The symphony orchestrated audio is sublime and has great clarity and depth to it. Adding to this, the effects used in the game all sound right on, and exactly as you'd expect, so credit goes to LucasArts for a great job on this. I also believe that graphically the game is excellent. Remember, this was one of the very first N64 games, and footage was used in pretty much every early N64 commercial to show off the power of the system. One thing which is also cool to know is that the PC version of the game used very specific graphic card drivers and filters, which meant it was very difficult to set up correctly. This resulted in many people turning to the console version for its ease of use. Now, the N64 version did suffer in the cutscene department. The PC version had full motion cinematic cutscenes, whereas the N64 version relied on out of place looking still images with text. It was easy to see why this had to be the case, however I can't help but think how much cooler this would have been if the N64 version had better quality cutscenes, as the general story is not one of the most exciting, so this perhaps would have helped the game somewhat. Readers of the comics and novels were left with the opinion that Dash Rendar dies in the final battle. However, if you want to know what really happened, then you have to play the game, all the way to completion in either medium or hard difficulty to find out exactly what really happened. It does add longevity to the game, and the hard mode is extremely challenging. Adding to this, there are also challenge points to collect in the game which will keep you coming back to hunt for those final tokens across each of the game's stages. In closing, Shadows of the Empire is a game you really need to play. Whilst I don't think you need to be a Star Wars fan to appreciate it, for those of us who love the series, you'll love the attention to detail, storyline which is woven into the movies, and the characters you know and love making cameo appearances. There is also the vehicle-based levels, which paved the way for the next Star Wars games which would set the gaming community alight. So I shared with you my memories of Star Wars Shadows of the Empire, but now want to hear yours. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and until next time.